talk a little bit about my background and why I kind of fell into the e-scouting world the way I did. And I think you guys, see Ryan, he has no idea. He lives out here, he's been out west. The guys that live here have no clue. I'll just be honest. The guys, I mean ordinary guys like me and a lot of you guys coming from east to west, those are the guys that really need this kind of information because I mean, that's what I needed. We don't get a chance to chat around the coffee table. Oh, are you going up to this spot? Or what do you think about that spot? I mean, in Missouri, no, we're just excited to be going elk hunting. We don't know anything about any spots. We're just going to drive out. And if you do know anything about any spots, it's some guy from Missouri that probably doesn't even know what he's talking about. So, and you're not going to get any information from anybody out here. That's not going to happen. I'll be honest. After my podcast with Cody, I got 3 or 4 hate messages. Like, guys like, what are you doing? Why would you say stuff like that? Why would you record a 2-hour video on digital scouting? Just give them the summary stuff. You know, I don't know. Guys, I'm from the East. I would have killed to have some of this stuff when I started. I mean, it was a brutal process to elk hunt when I grew up. You know, I'm going to talk about that in a second, but just to give you a little background on that. All right, so a little bit about me. You guys, what's real weird about when I prepared this presentation, I didn't know I was going to be intimate with you guys for 3 days before the presentation. There's not a lot you probably don't already know. We've been hiking up mountains and talking. And so my general background, I'm from Missouri. I moved to Montana 3.5 years ago. And I've been elk hunting. This will be I think it's my either 29th or 30th year of elk hunting. So a lot of years driving 20-hour road trips, you know, and all of that. So now, and I used to hunt elk at least twice a year from Missouri. So I was real lucky to be able to do a lot of it. Well, a lot of it. Now I'm doing even more of it. So a little background about my annual pursuit. So right now what I try to do the last 3 years is I'm averaging between 80 to 100 days in a tent. Last year was 108. And I try to hunt at least 3 states for elk. And I will go up to 5 if I can get tags. But always 3, sometimes, probably my average is 4. So, and the only reason I'm saying that, I'm not bragging, well, I kind of bragging because I really like that I can do it now. But you can't do that if you don't have a good grasp on being able to analyze areas, analyze statistics, analyze spots. You know, you heard a lot of, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but you heard a lot of really good stuff the last couple of days. I hope you guys really picked up on some of the finer details, especially Brian Barney's presentation. He's kind of all over, super excited, a little about like me, and sometimes you got to slow him down. What did you just say about that? You know, when he talks about the leeward side, I hope you guys were paying attention to that. That was like a gold nugget. We were talking about this last night. You could do a whole session on wind, but when that wind blows over the top and makes that circle back up, that's the death of elk hunters, well, at least for me. But those are little nuggets that he didn't spend a lot of time on, but I hope you guys paid attention to some of that. So we're going to talk a lot about hunting style and strategy because you really have to understand your style. If you're going to do digital scouting, there makes no sense to do a bunch of digital scouting if you're never going to put the backpack on your back. If you're going to hunt from the car, that doesn't mean you don't do digital scouting. That's just a different kind. You got to look different places. If you're going to put the backpack on your back, that's a little different. If you're lucky enough to have a bunch of llamas, that's a little bit different strategy, you know? If you're trying to poach on one of Ryan's or Cody's spots, that's a little bit different strategy. So you have to understand that and what your goals are when you're setting that up. And I know that sounds pretty basic, but it's really not that basic, and we'll talk about that. My background, I already said a little bit about this. I mean, I fell into this like Cody. I have this fascination with just the research of it. I think you'll pick up on that by the time we're done. But when I started elk hunting in 1989, roughly around there, I would go to the library because I didn't have a lot of money then. And I would just check out 100 topo maps at a time. And I just lay them out on the floor and organize them. And then finally I decide where we were going to go. And we'd buy all of those. And we'd trim the edges. And I'd take packing tape all the maps so they'd be waterproof. And then I'd take a permanent marker and I'd be working out my hunt plans on those. That's how I got started. I found the other day a roll of some of those maps. It was so funny to pull those out. The bad part about that, we'd drive out there and we'd change our mind and we'd have no maps. We're off the map. And the map days were rough. So contact you guys. If you guys want to get a hold of me, my channel on Instagram is Treeline Pursuits. My email address is just mark@ultramaxsports.com. You can message me through there. I'm glad to, if there's anything here that is of interest to you, or maybe you already know all this stuff we're going to cover, but so just feel free to contact me. And it's been really great getting to know you guys. I'm a little surprised by this event, to be honest. I've had a great time meeting you guys, and I thought 3 days with Ryan and Cody. Yeah, I don't know. And then Cody, I've been staying at his house. I feel like almost like a invader over there, But anyway, I appreciate all of that. It's mark@ultramaxsports.com. So you guys probably know. So my business, what I do is we produce events, triathlons, marathons, that kind of stuff. So my background is triathlon racing. I know it doesn't look like it right now, but back in my days, I did a few triathlons, and that really went well with my hunting strategies. Those are some of my best years. That's when I probably couldn't have kept up with Brian, but I probably could have been close back in those days. Well, guys, I'm 53 now. And I still try to stay in shape somewhat. I'll be in better shape by elk season. I like to say I get to spend enough time. I hunt. By the time I get into my 80th day of hunting, I'm in pretty good shape. I hunt myself into shape. But, so that's kind of a little bit about me and how I got into this. Okay, this weekend I added this slide because I've been listening to all these presenters. This has been a major topic all week. There's not been a person get up here who hasn't talked about some strategies with finding spots, finding critters, or some type of digital scouting, right? There's been Randy was talking about, Brian was talking about it. Even when Ryan was talking about gear, it always gets into the conversation because the number one thing is we want to find places that hold animals, and we want to find places to go hunt. And we all love to hunt. We all love the pursuit. But ultimately, we do want to find one. I hunted with a guy that I started with. My first elk hunt was my boss, where I worked for a nonprofit for an organ and tissue bank. 19 years elk hunting, never killed an elk. 19 years. And I'd go, and back then I was probably about 50% successful back in those days, in the early days, and I just felt so bad every time I'd kill one. I'd be like, oh, he packed out so many of my elk and never killed an elk. And I tried, he was just not in the greatest shape either. So when it came time to those final pushes up to where one was calling or something, and I just tried to get him up there, and we really didn't know what we were doing. When we were called out, we'd set too close. Like, you remember Elk Nut's presentation? Another tip, how he mentioned, another tidbit that you may have not picked up on was how many opportunities he had a chance to kill an elk when he was the caller. That's pretty much how it went. The elk would circle, I'd shoot it, and then he'd help me pack it out. And so that's kind of how it went in the early days. But you guys have had a great opportunity to get a lot of perspectives. Like Cody's got, he loves this almost as much as I do, maybe more. He's got some different strategies. He likes those little hard to find places. Like he talks a lot about crossing rivers and going down into camp right by the road. Elk Nut talked about it too. I don't focus on those kind of things as much. It's just not my thing. That doesn't mean there's not elk there, guys. But I like the backcountry experience. Like Brian. Brian, you're never going to find Brian hunting by the road. The guy, even if there's a 200-inch, I'm convinced if he doesn't go 10 miles, he's not going to kill it. Ryan's probably kind of the same way. I mean, guys, there's some gyms that are close and little pockets you can, so, you know, just gotta listen to what everybody is saying and kind of adapt it to your strategy and your style. So I just love that deep backcountry experience. And so that's kind of what I focus a lot on. That's basically the point when I say what is best. They all are the best, guys. You guys have heard so much good information this weekend. But ultimately, you have to find what works for you. And so I hope that by coming to something like this, you're just getting all this, and you're going to take little pieces and parts and adapt it to your to kind of your pursuits. And then just having the access to all these guys. I mean, I'm probably the most inexperienced. I'm probably the most bumbler out there of this whole group. So I'm honored to even be here, even talking to you guys with the group of people. And I hate going last. Next year, if I'm invited back, I'm going to absolutely require that I'm first. Because then, because when you're last, the expectations are high. Okay, now what we're really going to talk about. Okay, so when I look at digital scouting, I always approach it as an odds game. Guys, there is no magic pill. There's no guaranteed place where there's going to be elk. It's an odds game. And what I mean by odds game is we're going to take all these tactics that we're going to talk about, and we're going to find places that have the most of those things. We're not looking for the best north facing slope. We're not looking for the best bench on the north, but we're looking for a combination of things. And when those factors start to show up, it starts becoming obvious. So just think of it as an odds game. So now today, most guys are doing some digital scout. How many, you guys are all looking at Google or at least onX, right? Is anybody not really yet? Yeah. Well, it can be overwhelming. I was just looking at an onX layer. Where is he at? The guy was just, oh, there he is. We were just looking at onX, and we couldn't get this green layer off. It was like turned on. One of the public land layers is turned on. And so it gets complicated sometimes. And the information is vast. And if you start doing a lot of it, then you start having organizational issues. You start looking at Cody's onX, and it looks like it's just one big pen. When you're zoomed out, the state of Montana is just red. And I'm going to try to move real fast when I'm in my apps, so you guys can't get real focused in on some of my waypoints. But you'll see there's a lot of stuff on there. Almost too much, to be honest. But I'm a big proponent of managing multiple systems. You're going to hear me talk about this a lot. I try not to be one-dimensional. And what I mean by that is I use Gaia GPS. We're going to talk a lot about it. I use onX. I love onX. I use Google Earth. I use TopRut. I'm going to talk about that. That's something I haven't heard. I haven't heard a single person mention that this weekend. I can't even believe it. TopRut.com. It's like gold, boys. When we start getting into this, you're going to really like some of this stuff if you haven't already been using it. So what I'm talking about is a lot of my buddies, they pull up onX every time. It's just onX. Guys, we were just looking at onX. The satellite view, where I'm going to show you in a minute, where we were at in the helmet and the Binks, onX view's got a bunch of snow on their view. But when I looked at Gaia, it's green. So obviously those images are from different dates. Well, if you were trying to scout this area for September and it's all snow covered and you couldn't really see the grass areas and stuff, you might just give up, or you might just be like, pass up that spot, or just accept that the snow's there. But if you use another tool, you can get another view on it. And so I just cycle back and forth. The limitations. This is important. And this is so obvious when you think about it, but it's so abused. And what I mean by that is you have to face reality when you're going to plan a hunt, okay? Really got to reach down. What am I capable of doing and what am I not capable of doing? So many guys get on everything looks amazing on your computer. You're like, well, I'm going to go right up to that basin. That ain't no problem. And you get there and you're looking up there going, geez, it's all flat on that screen. So you have to be careful about when you're going to do a lot of work and then half of it's not even usable because you've kind of exceeded your capabilities, time frame, and this next one. How many of you hunt solo? Oh, surprising. Groups. When you get the group going, you got a whole nother problem. And it's hard enough to find hunting buddies, but you start going out with 3 or 4 dudes, and everything changes with fitness, fatigue, capability. Even some people are more affected by altitude than others. My brother has a terrible time getting adjusted to altitude. So when I plan our hunts together, I know the first couple days I have to keep it somewhat reasonable so that he can get adjusted. Now, once he gets it, then he's ready to go. But it's just his style. You guys have heard Brian. I mean, you heard Ryan. So I'm going to throw him a little under the bus. When you hear Brian Barney talk and you hear Ryan Lampers talk, I looked at some of his slides. It's all about if you're not killing yourself, you're not killing the animal. I don't subscribe to that theory. Mainly because I'm 53. Ryan's limping around. He's going to start understanding reality here in the next few years. But, guys, it's not always about how hard you hunt. I like to think that I sometimes can be a smarter hunter than a harder hunter. But, it's not always about getting to the top. It's not always about getting the furthest back. So just keep that in mind. You got to embrace your style of hunting. We talked about if you're going to hunt car camp, if you're going to back camp, if you're going to spike camp, if you're going to use stock, you got to embrace your style. Corey Jacobson, I don't know if he's afraid to camp in the woods, but that guy would rather walk 13 miles every day and hunt an elk than go in, pack in, and camp. He just doesn't like that style. He likes to be on the move. He hunts from a vehicle most of the time. But the guy will just go and cover a lot of miles and bugle until one, and that's just his way. And that's his style. And he kills a lot of nice bulls. I move around a lot, but I don't like vehicle base camping. Now, what's nice about the vehicles is you pack right up, you're moving down the road. And you can relocate much easier, obviously, than packing in and out and all that. But you have to embrace your style. And don't be a follower. Don't do just what Ryan does. Don't do just what I do, what Corey does, what anybody. Kind of look at everybody's style and say, oh, I'm a little more like this guy, or I'm a little bit more like this guy, but you don't have to necessarily follow them. Distance creep. We're going to talk about some things that people, when you're looking at when they're looking at their digital scouting, and they start looking at this 8-mile trail. Guys, 8 miles with an elk with a backpack, if you haven't gotten one yet, is no joke. Especially archery when it's warm and you got issues. You got to keep all this in mind. I know it looks like an amazing spot and you want to get back. I run into guys in the backcountry that have no business being back there. There's no way they're getting that elk out of there. They're barely getting themselves in and out. They're sweating and they're worn out and they're 7 miles in. I'm like, what are you guys gonna do if you shoot one? I killed an elk with the guys one time. I met him at the trailhead, called an elk in for him the next morning. It was really a fun trip, and they didn't even know how to butcher the thing. I was gonna leave them, and they're like, you think you help us get started? I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Well, we haven't really done one before, and I was like, so I showed them how to strip down to my underwear. First they were a little shocked by that. And we all stood around our underwear, didn't know each other, and butchered that elk out. And then I felt bad for him, and I said, okay, boys, if I have to hunt you down and kill you, I will. I let him take my llamas back to the truck and then bring them back to me. And they did, and we've kind of become friends since this time. But I met those guys at the trailhead on a solo hunt. Yes. Okay, so I told a couple guys. I told a couple guys this story. I guess I didn't tell everybody. So I hunt a lot in grizzly. I do have an image of that. I was going to put it in the show, in the slideshow. I do a lot of grizzly and hunt a lot of grizzly country, guys. You can take all the precautions in the world, hang your food, keep everything, and then you got blood all over you. You are asking for it. How many guys sleep in their clothes in their tent? You know, when they hunt and they just go right in, right? I do, guys. There ain't nothing that grizzly's coming for more than that bloody clothes. I mean, he'd rather have that than your candy bars and your toothpaste and everything else. And people ignore their boots. I mean, you get all that. Now, unless you kill and you're done and you're going the truck, that's fine. But if you're like in a group and you got hunting to do, and you're in, even, I don't know, I've gotten to the point now, I kind of like just stripping down. So I kind of do it in black bear country too now. Unless it's cold, really, really, really cold. I was in Wyoming one time, we killed an elk and this bear was huffing in the dark. And we were skinning this, we didn't know what kind of bear it was. And I'm like, crap. I took my belt off my backpack. I had my gun and my bear spray. I had my ex officio shorts on. And I'm out there buck naked with just my ex officio on and my belt with my gun and my bear spray on while I'm working on this bear. And this bear's huffing at us. And I was like, you know, if we have to take off from here, my clothes are all piled over there, my back's over there. Anyway, I think that keeping clean we're getting a little off track here, but I do it to keep clean is the only purpose. I don't know what those guys thought at first, but afterwards they're like, you know, that's a pretty smart idea. Like, get killed by a bear, they're gonna really wonder what the hell. Yeah, now if it ever happens, man, that bear took his clothes off. I mean, it's like, so, all right. You guys have been going for 2 days. We're gonna try to make this a little more fun than just the grind. Okay, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this, but because it's not really involved with what I really wanna get to you today, but you do have to keep this in mind. You gotta determine, you gotta get your state, species, method, and application strategy under control before you can really start getting into the game of where we're gonna hunt and all that stuff. Guys, nowadays, how many apply multiple states here? All right, so most of you already know the challenges. Man, these regs, you almost have to have a degree. Even, I mean, this year I did 16 applications. I applied for 16 critters and I got 0, which is pretty typical of my luck. But guys, I make mistakes every year, but I forget to put my second choice in because in my mind I remembered Arizona doesn't evaluate the second choice before they go through the list, so there's no reason to put a second choice. But in Utah, they do evaluate. I mean, there's so many little things that you have to understand, and we can't get into all that now, but you got to really understand it. And I'm going to kind of skip down here, but gohunt.com, guys. And I'm not trying to sell you on anything, and that is a pretty pricey tool, but it is worth every penny for that alone. Their strategy articles and stuff are really good at helping you understand the regs without having to really digest the whole booklet. So I really rely on GoHunt for a lot of information on that. Like I said, it's extremely hard to navigate. You got deadlines, draw odds, the process, the preference points. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? First and second choice, how they evaluate it. Does everybody understand that? Some states, guys, there is no reason to put a second choice. There's just none. You're wasting your time looking up and trying to figure out one because they're never gonna have any tags left. But some states, I don't even know off the top of my head, I think Arizona does. Nevada does. They work all your choices. Well, that's another danger. You got to be careful about not putting a choice that is super easy to draw and you got 10 points and all of a sudden, bam, you use them on a cow tag. And then some states don't use preference points when you draw a second, third, fourth choice. I mean, guys, you can make, when you start, I got 18 points in Arizona. Never drawn a tag, maybe never will. But I'm scared to death on every season in Arizona that I'm going to make a mistake and draw a freaking crappy tag and my 18 points are going to be gone. It's like that's what my nightmares are made out of. It's not Grizzlies. It's losing 18 points. So I set up my calendar, my Google Calendar every year with reminders of every draw of that I do. I can't tell you how many draws I've missed. One night I woke up in a cold sweat, jumped up out of bed at 1 o'clock in the morning, scared the crap out of my wife. I'm like, shit, the Wyoming deadline was today. I jumped up, I ran downstairs, freaking it's 1 o'clock, it's closed at midnight. I was throwing stuff around. I was so pissed off at that. My wife was so upset. The next day, bless her heart, she called Wyoming Fish and Game and seen if there's anything she could do to get me in the draw. Because my buddies were going and I screwed the group application up. Because they needed my points. And I didn't go on that hunt. And they didn't go either. And I was dejected. So anyway, I've kind of taken better care on that kind of stuff. So the paid platforms that I use, I'm not going to get into it real quick, but Go Hunt, I already talked about. TopRut.com, guys, it's only $19 a year. It'll be the best $19 you spend. I think when you see some of the stuff I'm going to show you, they do a terrible job of promoting themselves. Those guys, whoever those guys are. Oh, and I want to do a disclaimer. I am sponsored by not a single person. I pay for every single service I get. I pay for every, no, that's not true. Gaia does give me the app. Onyx does too. That's all I get from them. They give me a free app. I just want to be upfront because I am not in the business of selling stuff to people. I will never tell you anything that I don't believe in, or it's just not the way I roll. And there's nobody in this weekend here that will do that. But I do think this is a really good tool for the money. If you don't want to spend the $149 a year for Go Hunt, spend the $19 a year for TopRut. And it's worth it. The free platforms. You guys, a lot of people have alluded to this. The hunt planners, Randy Newberg talked about, almost every state has a hunt planner now. They're really good to get started with you looking at core areas. Published stats, okay? Those are complicated. I'm really gonna sound like a total geek here. So one thing that I've done, I was talking to Ryan about this, I think we first started talking. I'm a database programmer from way back. I wrote my own database that I import Wyoming, Idaho, Montana data into. And because nobody has historical analysis. Everyone has, like, you can look at 17, you can look at 16, you can look at certain years, but nobody has blended data. And I think that's important because you have to, if you know anything about statistics, you got to throw out the anomalies. Every unit's going to have a good year. You're going to see whatever. I mean, there's going to be snowfall, mortality is going to make, there's a lot of factors that can really make a unit good one year. So I wrote a system that takes all the years, 10 years is what I've got in there, and it averages them, every criteria. And then I went one step further. I have a multiplier that is attached to each criteria. What I mean is harvest rate is obviously, everybody always looks at harvest rate, but that's not the only factor, guys. Just because they kill a lot of elk might be a gun season with a bunch of freaking cow tags driving up the harvest numbers. So I have a multiplier for harvest rate. Now it's the biggest one. In my system, it's a 7 times multiplier. So I take the harvest data, okay, and then I rank it. So what I mean by that, and I'm telling you this because you can do this in Excel, okay? If you guys have questions about this, this might be something you want to contact me about. I could do a whole presentation on this. You rank that harvest data, okay? For example, I give everything from 0 to like 10% a 1. Everything from 11% to 20% a 2. So on until I get to 5. Then I take that ranking, multiply it by 7. That is my number for harvest data. And then I do the same thing for 6-point bulls. I say If it's less than 20% 6-point bulls, it gets a 1. If it's 20, I'm just I don't know what but I give a ranking based on kind of what I'm looking at. 1 to 5, and then I have that multiplier I think is a 4. So it doesn't carry as much weight as the harvest, but it does have a weight. And then I rank the total number of hunters. Then I rank all the criteria. So then I think you're starting to see what's happening here. I assign a 1 through 5 ranking to every criteria. I have a multiplier multiplying that ranking. And then ultimately I have a final score. Guys, when I get down to that final score and I sort that score list after 10 years of data, stuff just starts jumping out. There's one unit in Montana, which I won't mention, that is in the top 10 every single year, no matter what. And I hunted some, but it's just the data is just almost overwhelming for this unit. And it's a sleeper one. It's not that well known. It's not talked about a lot. But when you do the data that way, it really starts to jump out. The best unit in Montana is the breaks. I'm just going to tell you, for archery, there's nothing even close for 10 years. There's a lot of people down there. There's a lot of elk in there. I don't like hunting that kind of country. The bulls don't call well, and but anyway, the breaks is a draw unit, but it just has incredible data because they don't have predators. They got over objective elk, but there's a lot of hunters, but there's a lot of elk to go around, and they kill a lot of 6-point bulls there. So so anyway, that's kind of how I look at this data, and this is important for digital scouting. I know you guys are kind of wanting, but this is the groundwork that has to be done before you can start putting boots, looking at Topo maps and everything else. Right, Randy Newberg alluded to this. Randy Newberg tells a lot of stories and kind of elaborates on things, but man, he'll throw out those little nuggets. Did you guys catch all those reports that he was talking about yesterday? Guys, those are gold. I learned a couple new ones yesterday myself. I've made a couple notes. I do a Google search for Montana elk objective, Montana elk management reports. Guys, Montana produces one that's like 175 pages. It is just a gold mine of data. Yes, sir.
Like for your database, to get the data, obviously you're going to the state and their published data. Do they put that in a platform like in a CSV?
Yes, they're all downloadable. They're all CSV downloads. You got to look a little hard. It's not like right on they're kind of like at the bottom. There's a little link that says download or something. I wish I could do more states like that, but a lot of states. Now, I do think you can request it. If you really want to get Colorado or some other states, you obviously can, because Go Hunt and TopRut are getting it. I think you can request it. I just don't know they make it available right on their websites. But Montana does, Idaho does, and Wyoming does for sure, because I download those. The reason I do those states, those are my go-to states. Those are the states I always hunt every year. Wyoming, not every year, obviously. I have to draw a tag every 2 years. So these state management plans are good. YouTube analysis, tag strategies and stuff, guys. I don't think there's anybody that does a better job than Randy and Corey with their elk talk and Elk 101. Those guys just do a good job of explaining draw processes. I mean, really good job. So, I can't do any better than they. I watch them too, guys. Every year I'll refresh New Mexico. I just watched this year just to get my mind back on New Mexico. I just watched Corey's New Mexico one, and I was just confirming that I remembered everything I thought I remembered. And then, I'm not even pumping him up. I think this is just fact. The two best podcasts I think I've ever heard on elk hunting is Cody did this podcast last year where he took the best of, correct me if I'm wrong, of a bunch of podcasts about elk hunting. What's that?
It's like 100 podcasts.
Yeah, and he just melded them into one podcast. It's like 3 hours. Was it 6? Yeah. I listened to it all the way to hunting camp one year, but it's just it's just great knowledge nuggets all the way. So this 275 that Cody has on is incredible. And then the one that he did with Paul Mandel, number 158, is pretty sweet. you haven't listened to those two, you definitely need to. Okay, let's get into this. I'm sorry. 275 and 158. And you can get, if it's not accurate, you can, yeah. Okay, I want to start here because this is kind of a new tool I've started using just in the last couple of years, and it kind of is a good groundwork tool. TopRut is a little different than Go Hunt because it serves me two purposes, okay? Go Hunt is really a strategy website. They've got great articles, to be honest, and that kind of stuff. But the main purpose, that filtering 2.0, is really a harvest data, a rules and reg evaluation, strategies. That's kind of what Go Hunt does, and they do a great job at it. But TopRut, they don't do any strategy stuff. It's just raw data. These guys are like mathematicians, I could tell. It's all spreadsheet driven. It's a little more complicated. But they have both draw odds and harvest information. But what they also have is this Google Earth tool, which I'm going to show you. How many people use it? Anybody in here? Wow, a couple. This is what I got the hate mail on. One of the things when I put this out, guys were mad I put this out. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So the draw odds and harvest information, it's some of the same information, but it's a little different perspective than Go Hunt. Again, when I talked about one-dimensional, this is what I'm talking about. I like to look at multiple sources. Not that I think that they're wrong. It's just that things jump out different ways when you look at it. You know, you always stay in science. You can make anything look like, I don't want to get into politics. You can make almost anything. I think Hillary can probably, in the physician world, this happens a lot. You can make any research produce the results you want if you work the numbers enough. You know, if you just want to kind of only look at this population and you only want to look at this, you can kind of make it look like anything you want. And so I think by having that multidimensional, you'll get a better overview of what you got going on. One thing I really like about this one, this is a simple little thing, but they've got fire history, but they've got this recent fire icon. You're going to see, when I show you, so you can roll down the whole state of Wyoming and look at every freaking unit just as in like 30 seconds and see if there's any new within 1-year-old fires, 2-year-old fires. And you can just go right to that unit. It's great. It's so obscure and it's not really talked about, but it's, man, I can be like, whoa, I've been in 81. I really like that unit. And there's a fire in there this last year I didn't know about. I'm going to check that out. They do have kind of a cool flyover too. They've taken the time on Google Earth with good rotational, and they do a flyover the boundaries of the units, and they publish it as a video. So it's kind of cool just to hit play button and just watch the flyover of a unit and kind of see the basins and kind of see how the topography flows. You look for the spoons. I call them the spoons. We'll talk about the spoons are a big basin that has a long canyon running out of them, basically like a spoon. I love those places. You can kind of see some of that stuff. And so I kind of like, now some of them are little, not as good as others, but I will always do that drone flyover. They call it whatever they call it. It's not really a drone, it's Google Earth. And then there's the states that they service. I love their application calendar. And, you know, all the other ones are like big. You can click right on toprut.com. You don't have to be a member. And it's got every deadline right on the main page, which is really nice. I'll reference that from time to time. So that's a good one. But one of the things I really use is these KML layers. Does everybody know what a KML layer is? Anybody here not know? Okay. So a KML layer is it's basically a small text file that has markups. It's called markups embedded in it. And when you open it in Google Earth, it'll show you that data overlaid on Google Earth. You'll see what I'm talking about when I bring it up. But that's Google Earth, in my opinion, is useless without these KML layers. Satellite view only, useless. I need Topo. I need fire layers. I need hunting districts. I need snowpack. And you can do all that in Google Earth, and not a lot of guys kind of, and they may know it, but they don't use it to their full potential. We'll talk a little bit about that. Wyoming, here's an example. This is 2018 stats, non-resident, preference point odds. What that means is I'm logged into my account. What I like about TopRut is when you set up your preferences, you put all your points in. So it only shows you the data that's relevant to your points. That's cool. You know how in Go Hunt, you have to actually say how many points almost every time. You know, when you're looking, this does it automatically when you have it set up in your preferences. So this is, what this one is showing is a type 1 draw in Wyoming is a, is like the, it's not general, it's the draw units of Wyoming, basically. The basic elk draw units of Wyoming. It's not general. And you can see red are the districts that take 10 points, okay? 8, 9, on down, okay? So you can see already, just by not even looking at the data, that there's only a few smatterings of that take 0 to 3. But what I like, when I kind of look at this kind of stuff, is right here. You see this 4 to 5? What I like is this right here. These units that border these units. Now, there may be too much. We don't know too much yet. This is just an overview. We don't know how much private land. We don't know anything. All we're looking at here is the numbers of points it takes to draw and a map representation. All this would do for me is give me kind of, oh, that's interesting. I got this 125 down here that's bordered by 2 really pretty hard units to draw. I might check out public land access. I might check out some of that. So, I mean, you know, it's not the end all. It's just another tool. I can tell you guys, these 10, these are good elk areas. They don't take 10 points because there's no elk in there. These, you can't hunt unless you live there because it's wilderness. And Montana and Wyoming is a piece of shit when it comes to that. That's the thing I hate the most about hunting. I'm so fired up about Wyoming, I don't even want to get into it. But these wilderness areas are, you know, just off limits. They're off limits and they still take 10 points. So you know they're packed with elk, they won't let us hunt. Just ticks me off. So what I like about this is that TopRut is organized into one spot. So let's look at TopRut real quick. All right, so here's that same data that made up that map, okay? So here's those fire icons I was talking about. So in Unit 47, there's a fire icon, which means there's a recent fire, like within the last 2 years. So what it says here is minimum points to draw using the regular tag. Okay, so you guys know the difference in Wyoming. There's a regular and a special tag, right? The regular is cheap, special is expensive. So basically the rich guys get to hunt more than the poor guys. It really ticks me off too. There's 2 things about Wyoming fire me up: in the wilderness and this freaking elitist tag system they got. But it's still my favorite state to hunt. So it just gets me mad. I mean, right? Come on. All right, so here it takes 62%. You got a 62% chance of drawing Unit 125 with 0 points. I love the way TopRut does this just in the spreadsheet view. Minimum points to draw special. Right there, you can see already. It's a 100% chance with no points if you pay the extra money. Guys, you'll find some hits, blows my mind. There are units in Wyoming that are easier to draw with a regular tag than a special tag. So why pay the money? Don't do it. Look at the data and kind of make a decision. Now, remember, it could change a little every year, but it's just the mix of stupid guys that just send in special thinking it's going to help. And what it did was made the special tags harder to draw than the regular tags. Is there one on there? I didn't. Which one? 96? There you go, right there. 70%. Well, that's not true. That's with 2 points. That's not true. But you guys see what we're talking about here. This is a view that you can't get on Go Hunt. You know, you'd have to take the data out of Go Hunt, put it in your own spreadsheet to get this. This is my point with one dimensional. Guys that have a Go Hunt membership think they got it. $149 a year, I got it covered. You don't have it covered. It's great. It's one of my favorites. But this is another tool. It's not the end all. It's another tool. All right. So you can look at the data. These are the number of tags. Guys, don't apply as a group of 6 when there's only 3 non-resident tags in that unit. It's not going to work. My friend, I don't know how many guys I know that just waste their money every year they put in. They put in for IBEX with a 4-person group. I'm like, guys, there's 0 chance in hell you're drawing that tag. You're just wasting money. And you got to know those numbers. So when you study it and take a look at it, you'll find, because I love to hunt with other guys, but when you start doing group applications, that's a whole nother dynamic of draw strategy. Especially as a non-resident with the 10% caps and things like that. The other thing about Wyoming that's super difficult is they start every damn unit at a different time. They don't know what starting elk season on September 1st is. Now, archery's pretty consistent for the most part, but gun is all over. Guys, one of my favorite guns, I'm going to give a good tip here, but one of my favorite hunts, and I'm not a rifle hunter, I love archery. September 26th, rifle tags in Wyoming. There's not very many units, but there's 4 or 5 general units that start September 26th, rifle. Wow, man. We laid in a tent. We couldn't even sleep. There's so many bulls bugling with a gun sitting there. I'm like, this is going to be like shooting ducks in a barrel or fish in a barrel. It was amazing. We killed 3 elk in 8 hours. It was insane. You know, it was a meat hunt basically, but it was a fun hunt. I love bugling bulls and do it with a rifle. There's not many places you can do it every 3 years. All right, so let's. All right, so that's a little bit about TopRut. We might come back to that as we get going. Okay. Now, when we start talking about hunt, how many of you guys do a written hunt plan? Do you guys actually write it out? Whoa, only 1 or 2. Guys, this is the main reason that I'm excited to do this. I'm going to change your life right here.
Wait, is this better than underwear?
I don't wear underwear except when I hunt. I'm giving you a lot of information about myself, but we were talking about that. We were talking about that last night. I carry Body Glide. That's my underwear. So the written hunt plan, guys, I can't tell you how many nights I've been dejected. Like 3 or 4 days, no elk, it's raining, things just aren't going good, haven't heard a bugle. And I pull that plan out of my backpack and I'm flipping through the pages and I'm kind of looking at my area, and I made a little note about a little spot. I'm like, oh man, I forgot I'm gonna go there tomorrow. I have killed so many elk. Like a spot that I had scouted, but when I started eating dehydrated meals and getting dehydrated and was tired and mad at myself and just missed a shot. Like Brian said, how long it takes to get over a shot on a big animal. I have a hard time with that too. Hit something, hit a log, whatever, limb. Oh, it's very frustrating. And you lose your focus. And you pull that plan out and you're like, man, it just gives you new life. And you're ready to go the next morning. But how many guys are laying in their tent at night with their OnX open trying to find a new place to go tomorrow morning? How many of you guys done that? I've done it tons of times. You're laying, okay, shit. What are we going to do tomorrow? I don't even have a clue. Let's pull up the OnX on my little 3-inch screen and let's solve the problem. Well, maybe. And then then what happens if you didn't download the offline for that area? Whatever. So this hunt plan is the whole part of my presentation. I hope that if you get anything from this, that the end result of all this stuff we're going to talk about is developing this plan. and a strategy for your hunt. All right. Hunt plan was been alluded to all weekend, guys. Everyone's kind of talked about it, like how they approach their hunt and how they plan their hunts. But what exactly is it? Now, when I say that, this is my view of it, okay? Just keep that in mind. I don't know that anybody ever actually said this. I think of my hunt plan as a collection of my hunt areas wrapped up into a strategy. It's the best way I could write it with one sentence. That took me longer to come up with that sentence than my whole presentation. Because I know it's hard sometimes when you've got something in your head and the way you do it, and then you got to relay it to other people. But my hunt plan is a collection of hunt areas, which we'll explain more, wrapped up into a strategy. Now, you notice I didn't say a plan. It's a full-on strategy of how I'm going to hunt that unit, or not unit, hunt that. No, I don't want to say hunt that area. How I'm going to pursue my hunt plan. So to me, a hunt plan is a targeted geographic location. My hunt plan is not a mountain ridge. It's not a canyon. It's my whole 10-day hunt. I want to be really clear about this part. It's not an area that I'm going to hunt maybe on day 1 or day 2. Those are called hunt areas in my view. The hunt plan is the whole strategy of my 10-day trip that I'm doing wrapped up. And there are going to be multiple hunt areas in that plan, but the hunt plan is the overview. I keep extremely detailed notes when I'm doing digital scouting. Guys, you're jumping around and looking at stuff, and just make a quick little note. You'll be amazed. We were talking about that yesterday. Make a quick little note. You'll be amazed at how things just start to come together. But if you just try to remember it all and you just try to keep it all in your head, and you're looking at 20 units, and you're going to forget more than you ever thought you knew by the time it's all over. So just those notes, and that is not my plan. That's my preparation for the plan. I'm going to use those notes and use that data when I get to the point where I'm writing the plan, okay? Areas. These are your options, okay? The hunt plan is not your options. The hunt plan is your strategy. Your hunt areas are your options, okay? What I mean by that is those are areas that you're going to hunt for a particular amount of time. It could be 7 days, could be 10 days, could be 5 days, but it's not a day, okay? It's not like this morning I'm going to go here. That's not a hunt area. A hunt area is a place that you could do your entire hunt in, okay? I know I promise you, this will all make sense. So think of a hunt area where you could do your whole 7-day hunt in that hunt area, okay? And there's a big reason for that. I think it's vital to your hunt plan. They're separate and distinct. And I mean distinct. They are not, hunt areas, guys, are not one ridge top, and then the next ridge top over is another hunt area. And the next canyon, next basin over is another hunt area. No. All those canyons, all those basins in that region is your hunt area. Now, those ridges, those are called points of interest. Those are called markups. Those are called places that we're going to go visit while we're there. They're not the hunt area. I always, on every hunt plan I do, I have 3 to 5 of these hunt areas planned out. That's a lot of work, guys. These are complete hunt packages that I've developed, 5 of them for a hunt. Last year in Montana, I had 5 hunt areas planned I had a 10-day hunt, one of my 10-day hunts. This is every hunt I go on, guys. I do this every hunt. My 10-day Montana hunt, archery, was my hunt plan. My hunt areas, I had 5 of those worked out for that hunt. I ended up getting to number 2. I got to number 1. The roads were closed. I couldn't get to it. They had a problem. There was a culvert out. and we couldn't. Guys, this makes a lot. I mean, this is good stuff. So 3 to 5 hunt areas I have worked out. The work you do for these guys, it's not lost. The next year you might go to start with when you organize, we're gonna talk about ranking hunt areas. When you get all done, I never, ever go into it, I try to, not thinking, this is my number 1 hunt area, this is my number 2. I wait till I'm done and I let my research speak for itself. And it'll jump out to me like, whoa, I really like this one. So I'm gonna move this one to my first hunt area. It'll develop. I never start out working on hunt area number 1 and then hunt area number 2. You know, I work on hunt areas and then I prioritize them. Does that make sense? So hunt areas, what makes up a hunt area is unit. It can be multiple units, guys, even. It could be mountain ranges. And what hasn't been talked about a lot is elevations. You never want to have a hunt plan that one of these 5 hunt areas is not at a different elevation. I made that mistake 2 years ago. We got a crazy snow September 15, 20 inches where I was at. At that elevation in that area, all 5 of my hunt plans were in that same elevation. I was freaking hosed. And I was like, we had to relocate. I'm in the truck with my Onyx on my 3-inch screen with 5 dudes from Missouri and my llamas trying to relocate to a different elevation. It wasn't very fun. And we didn't even kill a hunt. We didn't even kill an elk. 5 guys, we didn't even kill an elk on that hunt. Mainly because we were just bumbling around. I mean, in the snow, I thought the elk would go crazy when that snow came. But in our area, they were bugling like crazy. And the night that snow came, nothing. I think it shocked them. I think they were like, whoa, hold on a minute here. And there was tracks everywhere. But we couldn't call an elk, couldn't get an elk to bugle, could nothing. That's not true. We did shoot 1 elk because we freaking followed it till we caught up with it. And Josh Keller shot it. Just tracked that bastard down 5 miles, followed him through the snow. But that was the point. So now, a new rule for me, guys, you're always learning, is I always have an elevation option of at least one of the 5. Hunt areas, guys, when I define a hunt area, it almost always requires a relocation for me. It's not like, okay, I'm gonna hunt this drainage, and then if there's nothing in there, I'm gonna go up this drainage. Guys, those are just spots within the hunt area. Does that make sense? The whole hunt area usually requires a pack out, repack in, relocate with your car, driving across the state of Montana. Guys, last year my hunt plan was like, I had a number 3 option was 250 miles away. So the reason you do these things, road closures, messed up motor vehicle use. I've had 2 hunts that I've had to go to a backup hunt area because the freaking motor vehicle use maps are wrong. And I got there and the freaking motorcycles were riding around. You heard Randy talk about the ATV jamboree. Well, the problem with that kind of scenario is you draw a tag that's specific to a unit and but you still can have hunt areas in the unit. But they relocate, they work, but I'm not bashing Randy. But did you hear the way he talked about it? He's like, oh man, we didn't know what to do. We were like, we saw all these headlights. He didn't say, we pulled out my written hunt plan, we went right to option 2. I should have said that during the time, but I didn't. I'm just kidding. I've learned a lot of my East guy from Randy and his stuff too, so I have to give him credit. He's 2 years older than me, so we're kind of the same ilk. But they always require relocation, okay? How am I doing on time? Am I good? Okay. Hunt plan benefits real quick. This is obvious, but guys, I think it's important. You always have options if you do it, and then you have good options. You have planned options. You have strategy options. They're ready to implement at a moment's notice. Guys, when I do my hunt plans, I even have the turns on the road marked in Onyx or Gaia. Because how many times are you driving down the road and you got your app open and you're trying to look for the road? Like Ryan's directions to the Sphinx. And he just says, yeah, we're going to the Sphinx. Everybody jump in your car, drive over there. We're all from Georgia. I mean, I pulled in to get some soda And 2 guys pulled it. Do you go where you're going? I'm like, no. I'm like, I kind of have an idea. So Cody called me, said, you know where Ryan's going? This road's closed. Ryan's already at the trail. I wonder where everybody's at. I'm just giving him crap. He's learning about event management. But he's like, well, I know where it is. Everybody else should. So, but you got to ready to implement, okay? You're flexible and you're mobile. If you want to kill elk, boys, I'm telling you right now, the best way to kill them is to always be flexible and always be moving. If there's no elk there, freaking go to option 2. That doesn't mean elk won't show up, but guys, archery season, the odds of elk just rolling into a unit, pretty low. Now, rifle season, that could happen. You know, I mean, you could have a unit, you could have an area that's got nothing, and the next day there's 500 elk in there because, you know, everybody's shooting and shit at them over the ridge or something. But archery season, no. Even on pressure, they'll move, but I just don't see them very often just moving complete mountain ranges or complete elevation changes during archery, very rarely. But this is really the core, the purpose and the focus. Like I talked about, laying in the tent, looking at your OnX. Man, I've done it so many times. Poor judgment when you're in the field. It's really easy when you're in the comfort of your house and you're on your computer and you're making good decisions. But when you start getting all the factors, the fatigue. Well, you guys did, when you did that, how many of you guys did pretty well on the Ranger Creed when you were working out? Did you guys do pretty good on that? But you're seeing they were talked a lot about that. Mountain Tough talked a lot about making decisions when you're under stress. And the hunt plan, it doesn't eliminate it, but boy, it sure helps when you got all that laid out. I call it the wing it factor. It just takes it out of the equation. You're just not out there just winging it. Positive reinforcement. I told you the example, laying in the tent, it's raining, you pull how cool is it when you pull that out and you're like, oh, I got a place to go tomorrow. I've looked at that, it's coming back to me. That was a great looking little spot. I'm excited to get up in the morning and go to it. How many times have you guys got up in the morning just because you thought you had to hunt because you're on the hunt? You have no idea where you're going. You're just like, I'm hoping there's elk bugling right there at camp when I get up. Because if he's not, I guess I'll just spin the roulette wheel and go left or right or up or down. Guys, I've done it so many times. You're going to spend more time hunting. How many of you guys do more than 10-day hunts? Longer than 10-day hunts, okay? But a lot of guys don't. If you've got 10 days, like Ryan says in his presentation, he really doesn't like to mess with less than 10 days because you just can't grasp it the way you really need to grasp it. I think that's particularly true of mule deer hunting, even more than elk hunting, but not necessarily. But if you've got 7 to 10 days, you need to be ready to roll all the time, and this plan will help you. Historical knowledge. This is a little tidbit right here. If you do this process and you do all the things that we talk about, when you roll, you're going to have such a wealth of historical knowledge of an area. Stuff's just going to start jumping out and making sense to you. You know, and that's that one-dimensional thing. When you're looking at multiple resources, things just start to mold. One thing doesn't do it, but the combination of the two, okay? All right, now we're going to get into kind of really how I look at things. The first thing I do is research core areas. And what I mean by that is I've kind of decided that this is where I'm going to go in this general area. I don't know exactly where yet, but I'm researching core areas. I almost always start with National Forest maps, even before Google. Not many people do that. And I know that's it's laborious. It takes a little time. But man, I have found some gems with this. So I have every National Forest map that's in print for Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, Idaho, New Mexico. I have every single map. My wife thinks I'm a freaking lunatic. I got these giant banker boxes of National Forest maps. I brought one for you guys to look at if you want to look at it on a break of how I do it. I look at the descriptions of the unit and I outline every freaking unit in the whole map. of every map. Units I'm not even gonna hunt. You're like, why the frick would you do that? You don't even realize how much you're gonna learn by tracing and reading those descriptions. Those roads and those ridges and how it runs. When I talk about that historical knowledge, just by tracing this unit, 334, which is not a very big unit, Montana. It's a terrible unit, so don't go hunt it. I traced it. I've learned a couple of the mountain ranges that are Mystic Lake. I've got the road out. I'm seeing the trailheads on the borders of the unit. And I'm just filling my head with basic core knowledge. The next thing I do is I circle every access point. So in this unit, I don't worry about any of this because what is this? Private. You can see the barb, kinda. This is a dead end road, which is a hunter magnet. You got a trailhead here. You got a trailhead campground here, which is a definite hunter magnet. And then you've got a real obscure one. This one, it took me a while to find. I had to look at the codes on these motor vehicle use codes. These are motor vehicle use codes. And I had to figure out that this is actually not 61. This is actually an 8. You can kind of see it. And the roads are not open in that section during September. So the dead end is right there. And it's not an obvious dead end. It's not a trailhead dead end. And I can get right to the ridge. This is the divide. I can get right on the ridge, and I can take this ridge right around to the spots I want to be. So in this particular example, and I have hunted this unit. It wasn't fantastic. This is where I chose to go in from this particular one with my setup. But any of these others, but I know where the pressure is coming from. So in my mind, I'm thinking that this is really attractive. Why? It's in the middle of the unit. It's a combination campground trailhead. It's a freaking practically a paved road to it. It's a lake, which is a no-no. Lake accesses, boys, you better get ready to hunt off trail because they are recreation nightmares. But if you get off trail, you can kill elk. But if you stay on the trail, you're gonna have trouble because everybody's just up and down those trails all day long. Those elk know it. They're just a quarter mile over. So this is where I think most of the hunters are gonna come from. So I'm feeling like I'm over-exaggerating this a little bit, but I'm feeling like these hunters are gonna do a good job of keeping those elk right here where I can get to from here. Okay, and this is just, a simplistic view. But I take a maps, I do this, and then I start flying over with Google Earth. And I'm looking at that drone. I look at the drone image on TopRut. I do my own flyovers on Google Earth. And I'm analyzing just the view. And I'm seeing, are there any natural obstacles that are showing up that are serious? They're gonna keep me from going in from different spots. I mean, you guys, when you do those Googlers, you can see those canyons and you can see, real serious features, obviously. And you can see, is there something blocking these guys? Or blocking hunters coming from here? Is there something blocking people coming from around here? And then I don't know if you guys noticed this, but it's so easy to get wrapped up in unit 334, right? Well, this little gem is a draw unit in unit 270. That trail is actually a decent access to here. Well, I eliminated this one because I talked to a guy that says, dude, you gotta have it is a very, very difficult trail, to get my llamas up. The road conditions are horrible. So in my hunt plan, in my hunt area, okay, of this area, this is a hunt area right here, okay? I would consider this a hunt area. If I was only doing this would be hunt area 1, this would be hunt area 2, and this might be hunt area 3. If I was gonna put all my cards in one unit. Now, I don't do that in Montana, because we're lucky because we have general tags. We can hunt other units. But if I was in a state where I drew a unit tag and I had to only hunt that unit, I'm just guessing, but I might start to break that down that way. But in my hunt area plan, my primary access is this. It's written. My second primary access is this one. I think I can get up there with my trailer if the weather's good and it feels good. I think I can get there. So if I get here and I got problems like 50 dudes or there's a ATV jamboree or whatever, I don't got to get my maps out, guys. My option 2 is already ready to go for me. I have multiple access options, always written down, always identified, there's always a waypoint in my system. And I've already got the driving routes worked out. I don't even have to get out, guy. I've got my driving route to get back to my truck, get back around to this. I've already got it in my mind for that hunt area, okay? When you start doing this kind of crap on the fly, it just is a time suck. Especially when you're in a group and your buddies are like putting pressure on you. So a lot of the National Forest maps now, one of the reasons I start with these is they're doing a better job of putting the motor vehicle use maps embedded into National Forest maps. They're not always super accurate, but they're pretty good nowadays. So you can start 2 things. The green, so in this example, this is I think that's unit 1, yeah. Okay, so number 1. See, is that a 1? Yeah, whatever that says right there in that, or 7, whatever that is. You'll look that up in the legend. It'll tell you what the motor vehicle regulations are in there. But the key point on this is you see this green road? A green road means it's open year round, no matter what the rules are on the motor vehicle use map. This number, whatever that is, I can't read it, but if that says that area is closed to motor vehicle use, all motor vehicle use, that's not true, because they've told you that this is a green one. Green is open year round, even though the motor vehicle use timeframes may say not. Yellow roads, this one doesn't have, there's a red one right there. Yellow and red are restricted timeframes. So that means you got to look that up and kind of understand what is the time frame that road is open, okay? But again, your legend and your map has all that information. Guys, in my opinion, there's no reason to start your Google Earth stuff. There's no reason to jump on your systems. If you got roads, you got access, you got all kinds of other issues that you don't want to deal with. I like to know kind of what it's looking like before I start jumping into the details, is basically what I'm saying. Motor vehicle use, guys, I just don't like to hunt places where there's freaking ATVs and motors. That doesn't mean there's not elk there. I just don't like it. I like the experience almost as much as I like the hunting. So it's just my personal thing. You know, another thing, how many of you guys use those Delorme map books? You guys have those? You always want to have one in your truck for your state. Those red line, they're really good resources. Sometimes just pop out, get an overview. You're trying to relocate. You're trying to look at the best driving route. Driving routes out on X, it's hard when that's how we almost couldn't get to Ryan's spot. So I always have one of those books for every state that state I'm in. There's another source. Again, I don't get anything from it. He only has Wyoming and Colorado. But this guy that owns DIYmaps.com, anybody use those? Yeah. This guy back here, he should be teaching this. I talked to him yesterday. Those maps are excellent maps, but he just doesn't have them for every state. But if you're hunting Wyoming or Colorado, you can buy them by unit or a group of units. He's got excellent motor vehicle use, excellent topographic, really nice maps, and they're not very expensive. Okay, so again, now that we've established a core area, yes?
2 questions. The Warm map books, is that like a gazetteer?
Yes.
And BLM paper maps, how do you obtain those?
Right, usually right from the office. They're free. You don't even got to buy those. You'll have to pay shipping, but you can call and get those. Those are usually free. National Forest Maps, I go to nationalforestmaps.com, I think, is the best. They have the best in stock usually. And guys, really pay attention. when I say dimensional. There's a lot of sites that have national forest maps, but they're the old freaking versions. So do a Google and find out, make sure it's a 2007 that you're getting the newest one. Because a lot of them are trying to get rid of these old ones, and there's been an updated one since. So if you just go to the first place you find on Amazon, you may be getting a 5 or 6 year old version, okay? Now that we've got his core here, this is kind of the same area that we were talking about. The next thing I'm gonna look at is the zones of pressure. I alluded to this before, but this is the second component of my digital scouting. Where is the pressure coming from in a unit? Whoops. These obviously I've identified these pressures, okay? I'll just give you a little spot here, a little tip on this one. So I know where there's elk on this spot right here. I've already been in there. So guys are hiking in here. They're going all up in here. Guys are going in here. They're hiking up. This is a big area, so they're up in here. Man, this little spot right here, I found a buttload of elk right here. And why do you think that is? One, there's no access from private. There's no road. This is a pretty serious canyon right here. This road is not open. Actually, this road is not closed right there. This road is actually closed right there when I got up there. That made it actually even better. And this trail right here, I could not find it. We're gonna talk about that in a second. I've looked and looked and looked, it wasn't there. It was so old and so unused that I couldn't freaking find the trail. Now I got kind of excited about that. I like that with llamas, but I didn't know that when but this little spot right here, boys, is this would be a good, if I was gonna look for a gun spot and it wasn't too part of a hike and I wanted a car camp, it was cold, my wife, I could camp maybe there. Now that's a pretty good hike. But this is some good area where the elk can come down onto private, but they can retreat back in the thing that doesn't have a lot of access to it. So without even looking at Google Earth yet, I'm already a little excited about this little spot for maybe rifle. I mean, there might be some in there archery, but now remember, this is the divide, okay? This is the Continental Divide. You can't see Topo on this particular National Forest map, but basically, this is sloping from here up, okay? I mean, we're going up. Obviously, there's canyons and stuff and that kind of stuff, but for the most part, we're going up. So this is obviously lower, this is obviously higher. So I start looking at zones of pressure. This is what I do. I mark this on the map, every map, all the time. I outline the units. I look at every road. I circle every trailhead, every campground. I circle every dead-end road. Guys, dead-end roads are freaking hunter magnets. Everybody they think man, if I just get that dead end, there's gonna be elk everywhere. Hey, I can't tell you, I'll drive a road for 50 miles. There won't be a car parked along the road. You get to the dead end, it looks like a Walmart parking lot. You guys seen that? It happens all the time. And pull-offs. Any place that has a designated little pull-off. But all that land in between, I think Elton was talking about that, that's Corey Jacobson's kind of tick too. But keep that in mind. Motor vehicle use, private land, I'm always making sure, most of these maps are pretty good with it, but I always do this. So then the next thing I do, which is not, I did this on computer, guys. This is not an appropriate circle. I take cardboard. Any of you guys watched my videos on digital scouting yet? No? Only a couple? Okay, good. At least I'm not repeating myself. I take cardboard. I know. I get a lot of crap for this. I take cardboard and I cut out a 1 mile and a 2 mile circle out of cardboard. What I mean by that is based on the legend, the distance on the map. So basically on the national, you guys know 1 mile. I mean, it's obviously. I do a 2 mile to 1 mile circle. What I start to do is I do a 2 mile, I use the 2 mile template on dead ends, campgrounds, trailheads. I don't even touch anything in that 2 mile space. I don't care how good it looks. And again, that doesn't mean there's not elk there. That's just something I do. So I got a 2 mile circle around these spots right here. That's not 2 miles, okay? That's about a mile. Then I take that circle and I punch a center punch and I drag it down the road. I'm sorry, that's not the road. All the roads, I'm dragging it down the road on both sides of the road. I do 1 mile on each side of the road. I wish I had a picture of how I do it. I didn't bring one. Basically, I'm drawing a 1 mile buffer around every road. Seems like child's play. I do 1 to 2. Sometimes I do 2, but most of the time 1. Trailheads 2, okay? When you just do that, you've traced your unit, your 1 mile buffer zone around every road, you've done a 2 mile buffer around every campground, dead end, trailhead, man, the places just start to pop. You're like, oh, man, this spot, there's nothing inside a circle here. There's nothing inside a circle here. Now, this unit's not a very good example because it's there's not a lot of access, okay? It's not the best example. But you take an area that has a lot of access and you do this technique, you're gonna find little pockets that are gonna start jumping out. There's no way, I'm telling you, there's no way to do that with a computer. You can turn on motor vehicle use map layers, you can turn on US Forest Service trail, you can do everything you want. But you know how Onyx and things work. The more you zoom out, right, the less detail that you're seeing, right? So you can't look at this overview on those apps and on the computer. So when you're just trying to get the big picture, that's how I do it. So then what I do, and again, a lot of people were saying, Cody actually said this comment, he goes, if it's in the roadless area, I don't go. Because he thinks that's where hunters go. I agree. But I also agree that it's places that hunters want to go, but can't go. So remember, I do think that the roadless areas are attractive to people. And what I mean by that is on Onyx, you guys are familiar with the roadless layer. Gaia has it too. We'll see it, turns it orange. And you're like, if you see this orange place, you're like, well, everybody's seeing that orange place. I agree with that. But guys, the reality is it's 8 miles. They're not doing it. Most of the people. Ryan and Barney will be back there, but that'll be it. So then once I do the tracing, guys, I always confirm it. So let's say, for example, oh crap, sorry. Let's say that this is the spot that I like. That just looks pretty roadless. There's some drainages in here. I've looked at it a little bit on satellite. I kind of like this Pimpton. I just kind of like that little area. And it doesn't look like there's any circles that are in it. I'll always turn on my roadless layer on Gaia and double check it. Maybe there's a road that's not on here. And I feel pretty good when I do the roadless layer and I do this, that I've got a pretty good understanding about it. But I don't, guys, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I try not to be one-dimensional. I will always confirm it if I can. Okay, the big picture will start to develop if you do that. Another tip, I'm gonna throw in a few tips now from now on. When you're looking at places where you have to hunt downhill, the hunters hate that. For some reason, hunters hate to hunt downhill. They want to kill an elk and pack it downhill, right? So what do? Everybody goes up the mountain. But if you can find a trailhead or an access point where it's a freaking 3,000 vert drop into an area, sometimes those can be gold because nobody wants to do that shit. It's bad enough to help pack elk out downhill. When you start bringing elk uphill, it's a whole nother ballgame. Now, I'm not talking about just crossing ridges with elk, but like Brian Barney, I mean, he's 5 canyons back. I mean, that's a different story. But you know, a 2 or 3 mile from the road downhill is a good spot to not ignore, okay? All right, when we talk about, this is an actual, I tried to blur it. It's not too blurred. This is actually, last year, one of my hunt area. This is one hunt area for a 10-day hunt. This is what it looks like from a zoomed out. So you can see these are camp. You notice I got a billion camping spots on there. Not a billion, there's about 8, I think. I'm not gonna camp at all those spots, guys. But I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. Actually, no, let's wait on that. It's coming up. So once I've reviewed my pressure, I then have looked at my access points. I've told you that. I've planned my travel routes. I put markers in for the turns. Guys, when you put a marker on OnX and you're going down the road and it's in live view, it's so easy to hit the turn. And you know, if you got a spot that's got a whole bunch of roads and you're zoomed in on OnX, it's hard to kind of, okay, is this the right road or it's not? Guys, just place a marker at your turns. I know that sounds so stupid, but guys, are you in the business of hunting? Or are you in the business of navigating to your hunting spot? How many times with a horse trailer you drive by your spot like, shit. Then I got to go find a place to turn that damn llama trailer around. Sometimes that ain't easy. So I don't want to miss those turns. So I know that's a little overkill, but I like to do that. Parking areas. Now this doesn't apply to all you guys, but I analyze all the trailheads or spots that I'm going to go with my trailer to make sure I can freaking turn that thing around when I get up there. I have had some nightmarish situations where I got to the end of the road and it was just like the road just ends and it's a ditch here and a ditch here and I got a horse trailer on the back. So on Google Earth, I can look at that parking area. I also like to look at the parking areas when I don't have the horse trailer. Can anybody tell me why? Right. If it looks like it's like there's not even an area and it's not a big area and there's no cars there on Google Earth and it's September 15th, I'm like, that might be not too bad. But if I pull it up and it's Indian Creek Trailhead in Colorado and there's 150 freaking cars there on September 15th, I'm like, maybe that ain't the spot. Because you can get a lot of data from this if you just take the time to look at it. So I analyze where I'm going to park for two reasons. One, for the trailer, but two, how used does that parking lot look? Does it look like it could service 100 cars or does it look like only 2 cars can park there? I mean, it isn't the end all. It isn't the magic bullet, but remember what I talk about the odds game? It's stacking all these things together to put odds in your favor. Okay. Overview. Now, Cody's and I's favorite thing is just to throw a lot of shit on the map. And then when we get there, like, what is this? This is, guys, I put this one up because this is stupid. This is an example of me being too many spots I want to check. There, you couldn't hunt in a 30-day hunt. You couldn't hit all those spots. Yeah, compared to Cody's would be solid blue, and you wouldn't. There's no way you'd be able to tell where the area was because it'd be blocked out by waypoints. But so now I put it. I begin to put the markups in, etc. But camps, this is something I really wanted to stress to you guys. How many times, and Ryan, you can help me on this too, how many times have you packed in to a spot, you thought you were going to camp at a spot, or you didn't do it ahead of time and you're just looking for a spot? Look at what we did at the Sphinx. We hiked up to that first bench. Now, the problem was we sent Brian Barney up there. That was problem number one, because Brian's got a bear burrito that's a one-man Cuban fiber, and he weighs 120 pounds, and he's 4'2". So he could find a spot on any mountain, anywhere on a scree pile he could sleep. But he wants me to bring a 14-man teepee up and put it up in the saddle. Guys, how hard did we look for a freaking spot to camp? I mean, and we ended up being in a mole patch. I was expecting to get a back rub during the middle of the night from those moles. But my point is, I love making fun of these next level guys. Who had the green? Was that Brian's green tent sticking off the edge of the ridge? I knew that was his. I saw that tent hanging on the precipice. I'm like, that's Barney's tent. That's fun. That was right, wasn't it? I didn't know that. I swear I did not know that till I just said that. So we sent the wrong guys up first. But if we'd have done that properly, we would have looked for some benches. We'd have analyzed it. We'd have looked where the water kind of is coming in. And we would have analyzed that. And then I wouldn't have hiked up another 300 yards looking for a freaking spot with my llamas and took the packs off twice. Okay? I wouldn't have been down. There were some spots we walked by. I know I'm getting kind of out there, but this is a good example. We had what I call the grass is greener syndrome when we got up there. When we first got there, there were some decent little spots, but we all thought if we just go a little more, it'll get better. If we just go a little more, it'll get better. But it's not, we're up against the rocks, and it's not any better, but nobody wants to go back down. So we're just like, well, this is good enough. And then, I mean, we're in the most windiest, dangerous, lightning, the worst possible spot to camp in that unit. Probably we're on it. We're in a saddle between two giant presses. Every grizzly in that country probably walks through that saddle. We got lightning. Well, you saw the wind. We couldn't even hold the tents down. Now, Brian's bear burrito was doing just fine on that on the precipice. So, camp identification with Google Earth is way better than winging it down the trail and just finding a place to camp. Especially if you make a mistake. Like you underestimate how long it's going to take you to get in and it's in the dark and you get there in the dark. Guys, there ain't nothing that pisses me off more than setting up a camp, waking up the next day, and 200 yards away there's a better spot. And you got everything up, you're like, shit, I could have just been down there. I mean, how many of you guys, have anybody ever done that? Oh yeah, I've done that a bunch. So I always have multiple camp options within pretty close distance because I get to camp number one and it's shit. I got to some and they're flooded out or whatever. Guys, I don't have to get out and look. I've got number two ready to go. Number three. I'm going to get to this. I don't want to get ahead here. So camp, established trail analysis. I'm going to cover in just a second. I look at the hunt routes. These are hunt routes. Guys, these are pack-in routes, these red. These purples, these are hunt routes. What I mean by hunt routes is I like to plan out my daily hunts if I can on a route. And there's a lot of reason for this. I don't always stay on it. Now, I'm not talking about trail. Maybe some are on trail, but off trail, whatever. I like to look at the points that I want to get to. Let's say I'm going to hunt this one day. I'm going to try to plan my route around that, the best way I want to go ahead of time for multiple reasons. One, I like going through the process of historical knowledge of just really looking at kind of what I'm going to do. But the main reason I do it is, this is a good tip, is prime time hunting. I call it prime time hunting. And what I mean by that is so many guys are heading for the trail the last hour of light because they want to get to that trail so that they know they feel safe and they can get to their camp, right? Have anybody ever been victim of that? I have. I've done it, guys. You're like, oh shit, I'm over here. I got to leave a little earlier, and I'd like to because I got 2 miles to get to that trail so I can get another 2 miles of camp. If you got that hunt route, guys, you jump right on it. You're following your screen. You know it's a good route. You can get right back to your camp, and you're staying till the last minute. I've killed 80% of my elk in the first lights and the last minute. You can kill elk anytime, obviously. But man, those are the golden witching hours. You're glassing for elk. You want to stay on that ridge until you just can't see that ridge anymore, guys. That last bull that sneaks out is always the biggest. You see a couple bulls come out, you're like, those are raghorns. But that last one right at the waning light, and he comes out and he's got a shadow behind him, and you're like, whoa, that's the bull I want. But if you'd have been back on your way to the trail because you're worried about navigation, then you would have missed that opportunity. So having that hunt route is a way to get in and out with navigational, making it easier is really good. I also, when I do my hunt routes, I'm trying to think about the wind. Cody talked a lot about the wind and wind directions and all this kind of stuff. I try to think about, okay, if I hunt this route, I'm going uphill in the morning, maybe till 9-ish. I'm just generalizing, before the thermals start to switch. So in the mornings, the wind's coming down. I'm hunting uphill in the mornings. About mid-morning, I like to be traversing during mid-morning, midday, meaning staying on the same elevation. So that way I can adjust up and down. If I hear something or I run into something, I can quickly make an adjustment. But I always, in the evening, when I'm heading back, if I'm hunting my way back, okay, I almost always try to be coming downhill if I can. Because I want those thermals, I want that wind to be rising right before dark, and then right when it switches, it's going to start blowing downhill again, and then I can be kind of level coming into camp. And, you know, there's probably oversimplification, but not just planning a route because it looks like a good route, but keeping those things in mind, okay, when you're doing it. And guys, this all can be done on your computer before you even get there. This kind of stuff is, now you're not going to be for sure be able to tell the wind, but you're going to be pretty good. All right. So the keys to finding out what you guys all kind of came for. This actually goes pretty quick once you get that basic stuff done. Again, there's no magic formula. There's exceptions to everything. It's an odds game. We're trying to stack them. You heard Randy talk about the basic needs of elk, and he likes to break them into the seasons. There's a great stuff. I'm not going to cover it because it's great. The only thing I'm going to add, because I've learned my lesson the hard way, for 2 reasons: elevation considerations when you're doing your digital scouting, because of snow, possibly weather, whatever, but also feed. If you're coming from the east, guys, it's real hard to tell moisture content and where the grasses are going to be. Elk are not always at the top. I'm sorry, they're not always. I know that that's a great place to go up in the big basins and look for these, but they're not always there. The high country, as the summer goes on, has a real tendency to dry out quicker. The grasses will go away the fastest at those higher elevations. It's kind of just that mid elevation. I mean, do you kind of agree with that, Ryan? They're still up there, but the very, very top, guys, is brown, and it's just, it's gotten dry, and the snow melt's been gone for a while. Now, this year in Montana might be a different story. You guys saw how much snow's still up there, and it's July. So that's changing my thought on my digital scouting a little bit. But that's why the elevation considerations in your hunt plan is important, so you kind of have some variations in your strategy. And then you always hear these general platitudes. Avoid roads, get in shape, stay out all day, hunt hard. Guys, that's all true, absolutely. But all that being true does not equal killing elk. Does not. You can be in the best shape. I mean, you can be Dan. You can be Ryan. You can be the farthest from the road. You can never sleep, and you may not kill an elk if the elk aren't there or you're not in the right place. So, and more importantly, you're not prepared to move to another place. I think if you're getting anything from my presentation is that you've got to develop options. The bottom line is I don't understand it, but sometimes elk just want to be where they want to be. I mean, you're seeing mountains just green as a gourd, just grass everywhere, and no elk. You'll get another one that looks it doesn't even look good. And there's just elk packed in there. That's one of the beauties of elk hunting. I mean, that's the fun part, is they're just not that predictable all the time. Okay. Trail usage and evaluating trails. Guys, most hunters are not very far from established trail. I'm just going to be honest with you. They just don't do it. They'll walk a trail bugle, maybe get off a little. They just don't cross country very much. If you change your mindset on that, you're going to increase your odds. I'm telling you that right now. I try to not be on the trail when I'm hunting elk. I'll use the trail to get to where I want to be, but I try not to do too much hunting from a trail. I'll glass from a trail. I'll get to glassing spots. I'll do those kind of things. But I'm a big stickler about trails and evaluating trails. Brian talked about getting out of your comfort zone. Getting off a trail is getting out of your comfort zone, because you're going to have to navigate now. You're going to have to use your GPS. You're going to have to pay attention to what you're doing. You're going to have to plan for prime time, getting there early morning, staying there last minute. We talked about the hunt route. But if you focus off trail, you will find more elk. I think it's not very comfortable and it requires navigation, but I think you'll be better off if you kind of look for places like that. Number 2, I mentioned this. Lakes is a no-no. Trails that run to lakes are almost as bad as trails that run to meadows. those two are just, you might as well just check those off the list, in my opinion. If there's a trail, I mean within reasonable distance, of course, let's call it 2 miles, that runs to a meadow, they're probably not gonna be no elk there. If they are, then they could be coming there, but they're probably coming at night or after shooting hours. So let's take a quick look at trail usage. What did I do, man? Okay, so in this example, we have this Elkhorn Mountain Trail. We're using Gaia here, guys, this app, and I wish I had just so much more time to get into some of this stuff, but I use both, like I said, but here we've got this, I found this trail. This is in unit 380, and the reason I use it because we all in this room pretty much have 0 chance of drawing this tag. It's like a 1% chance. So it's a great unit. But we've got this trail that runs through this meadow, and it's pretty far from the trailhead. But what I want to look at when I'm thinking about this area, how used is this trail? So I've obviously got the trail on Topo, but then I'll switch to satellite view, and I'll find where this trail intersects the meadow or open areas, and I will start to zoom in on it, and I'll start to look for the trail itself. And you can see in this example, there it is right there. It's not exactly on the Topo. So it looks like there's a small remnant right there. Okay, and then let's go on down. And let's look in this meadow here. I don't really see it much here. The internet's real slow here, so the images are loading slow, but I'm not seeing it very much. I'm kind of going in and out. I'm just kind of looking at this thing. And right off the top of my head right now, I'm saying this trail didn't get used all that much, right? Can't see it in Google Earth. That trail we were on going up the Sphinx, guys, you could pick that out like on Google Earth, no problem, right? Horse has been up it. There has not been a lot of horse traffic on this trail, or we'd see it, right? So let's zoom out a little. So I'm gonna see where this trail hooks up. So now I'm looking, it comes around and hooks up right here. So this actually says it's an old, it's got a motor vehicle use road. The internet, it's a little slow. It's taking a little while but look at that already. I can already see it. Come on. All right, good enough. I can see it right there, right? So we can see where it comes. There it is right there. So right where it comes off of this road, I can't even see where it comes off. I know we can't right now. The internet's just not loading it. But trust me, I've looked at it. So I'm liking that trail already, right? How many of you guys take the time to do this? Do you guys look at the trail analysis on this? Every trail that I'm going to go into my hunting area on, I look at every one in Google Earth. Guys, you can't look at this in the feed. Why? The zoom level. It will not download that level of zoom to evaluate a trail on the mobile app. Once in a while, if it's a really well used, you can kind of pick it up. But the zoom view that you can see on your computer is way better than you can see on the app. So remember that. So all of this work, like trail analysis stuff, has to be done from home. So you've got it written. You got it written. Elkhorn Trail. Doesn't look like there's a lot of use. It's worth checking out. That's a note I'd probably make for this, okay? And I'm gonna go kind of quick on this. I wanna get back to them. I don't wanna miss out on some of this stuff. So there we go. That's how I evaluate trails. The next one, meadows. Okay, I have a lot of rules on meadows. As you know, I got this affinity because there's dead end roads and then there's meadows as second for hunter magnets. How many times you gone to a meadow and you found like 5 crude blinds made around meadows? There's some cedar trees have been piled up, something. That doesn't mean the elk won't use those meadows. That does not mean that. But they just may not be there during a time you can actually shoot them. So what I look for, I have a meadow rules. And again, let me just say this. I've broken this rule and I've been burned almost every time, 100%. If it's 2 miles or less from the road and it's big and it shows up on satellite view, I don't mess with it, usually. Meadows with trails running to them particularly, okay? I stay away from that. What I like to do is work the edges and the transitional areas. In this little example, this is a good one because I killed an elk in this one right here. You see this meadow here? This is not close to the road. This is not a very big meadow even on it. Whoops. But you know, what I like about this meadow is it's got a green, light green border. You see that? And that means there's probably, I don't know the time or the date this image is taken. I'd look at that on Google Earth. But just from observation with what we've got here, I'm liking the green edges of these meadows. And I'm liking that there is sparsity in these meadows. Okay? Meaning there's some trees in this, there's a transitional zone. These elk that enter from this timber coming into this meadow, if I was going to pick, will hang out in this area before they will venture out into this in the dark, right? That's pretty common sense. But what I really like is this zone leading up. The main reason I like it because I killed that bull right there. Last light, called him out. He came out of this timber and I shot him right it's somewhere right in there. And he ran out here and died somewhere out here. So he was just trying to stay in the timber as long as he could. And he was just working this edge. He came to the call. He was comfortable coming to the call. But guys, if I'd have been on this side of the meadow, I don't think he would have came, right? Now, if you had a lot of time, like maybe it's an hour before dark, he might circle it, assuming the wind's good. But you got to meet them where they are, and that's usually the edges during the shooting hours. So this is a good example of that. So I like meadow chains and dispersed meadows. And what I mean by that is this is what I would call a disbursement. This meadow is what I would call a meadow chain, where they're linked together by like a little bit of opening here, a little bit, guys, this little spot right here, I would be looking for some elk sign. If I was going to see if there's any elk in this area and see if I could see some sign, I will almost guarantee you there's going to be some elk tracks or elk sign if there's elk there in this little thin corridor right here. They're just going to take it. And then I know it's hard to tell, but you guys see this gray? Does anybody know what that is? It's real subtle on this particular example. That's beetle kills. I love beetle kill areas when they're not wiped out, where they're real dispersed. We're going to talk about that coming up. So meadows, I like high elevation basin meadows where we were looking at the other day. I love those kind. I love canyon bottom meadows. We're going to talk about coming up. I like side slope bench meadows that are on benches, not meadows that are on the slopes. Elk do come to those on the slopes. They love those. But it's odds thing, guys. It's not that they don't do it. But I think they love those bench ones just a little bit more than they love the 30-degree ones. I love the zones leading up to meadows when I'm evaluating it. Okay? All right, so let's go real quick. Let's go look at, what's that? Okay. Let's look at this canyon example of this meadow. Here's this meadow in the actual app. So we're going to switch this view. We've already looked at this satellite view. So we're just going to slide our topographic layer up. And we're going to take a look. Well, it's obvious that this is not real complicated terrain. But what I like about this real quick is I love this north slope right here. Guys, this is a dark timber patch. If I could turn on, I'm going to real quick. I know I'm going to run out of time on stuff, but that's okay. I would turn on my 30-degree slope. Look at that right there. Okay, that's my slope shading. I love this red and yellow bedding area right here. I love this bench little spot right here. I'm going to turn off this slope. My favorite spot right here is right here on this creek bench. This little bench right here, and this little transition bench right here. I've got a feeling these elk are going to be bedding right here. They're going to come up this ridge and they're going to feed right out in this meadow right here. The other one I like is this little pocket. What I like about this little pocket is this is the side, this is a north-facing slope that's on the side of that transitional area. Remember what we looked at? Where I shot this elk right here. He didn't come from this slope. He came from this way, but I do like this north face leading into that. Okay, real quick. I'm gonna go really fast now because we're running out of time. I'm gonna send this slideshow to everyone. Okay, so I'll make it available to you guys. Yeah, I'll send it to you so if we don't get to everything. Guys, it was hard for me to plan this out for the time, okay? Canyons, creeks, and drainages. I love canyons that have wide spaces in the bottom. I don't like V canyons for elk. I like canyons that go down and have a little bit of a flat. Okay, let's take a quick look. All right, here's a canyon. This is a great spot because it's in Yellowstone. You can't hunt it. I love this spot because you see this north slope? You see this creek canyon? What is about that canyon? There's no trail in it. That's gold already. Almost every damn canyon has a trail running in it, some bitch. The ones that don't, I love. So I love that there's no trail. I love there's some interspersed meadow in here. I love it's flatter in the bottom. I love this north slope, and I love this fire zone. I can almost I've never even been here, but I can almost guarantee you there's elk here. I really love this spot right here. This is a basin meadow in the fire zone right off of dark timber. It's gold. So this little spot here is a reason it's Yellowstone. Has some real potential for killing an elk.
Guaranteed.
All right, so real quick, let's slide up the Topo and let's take a look at it. All right, this fire is really impressive. This is what I would call a deep burn fire, okay? But what I really love, you see the green fingers that are coming up into this fire. You see this green, and then you see the timber around it. You got a north slope right here. These elk just got so many options from right here. This canyon bottom meadow here is gold. It looks so green. It's in the bottom. It's on a flat surface. It's got a really significant north face, and it's topped off with a fire at the top. I've got a feeling there's elk in this strip right here, if I was guessing. If I was a betting man. Okay, real quick. I got just a couple more minutes probably. Fires we already talked about. Guys, don't be afraid. I love fire zones, but you got to be careful. Don't hunt the old fires. They get really dead falling. Once those things start falling, they're hard to hunt. The elk are there. They can be there, but they're hard to hunt. They're really hard to call in, hard to move around in. They don't have thermal protection. So the elk don't like to be in it during shooting hours as much. Hunt the edges, hunt the transition areas, look for those fires. You know, out in the middle, the elk may get out there, but it's going to be in the night, okay? So pay attention to the thermal. Look for those green drainages in fires. And don't be afraid to hunt a new fire. I've always shied away from one-year-old fires, but man, this last year, we had some great hunting in a brand new fire because once that fire burned, the bottoms didn't burn because they were so wet, and that grass was getting that light. It was this deep. And those elk were heading for that. They were crossing the burn. Well, what was great about that is it looked like a friggin' highway of elk tracks across that charcoal ground. So all we did was track the elk tracks back to the edge of the black timber. We killed 2 elk coming right out of there, just like that. We couldn't get them in the basin because they weren't getting their shooting hours, and it was too open to set up. We just looked at the highway, basically, followed it back to the timber, and intersected them coming out. All right, logging areas. I don't pay a lot of attention to logging areas. I like them. The edges can be good. There's too many roads. They're hunter magnets. There's no thermal protection, and they grow back like a vengeance. So they're real hard to hunt. I like them, and they can be real good. But the logging industry is really in trouble around in North America in this part, and there's not a lot of really new ones that have a lot of the new growth. They're all a lot of old ones. So just keep that in your back pocket. Again, you'll get these slides so you'll see the tips. One of my favorites is beetle kills. So I want to show you this one example. Beetle kills are great because they got some thermal protection. The elk feel comfortable in them and they can grow incredible grass. So this is a beetle kill. If you ever want to know what a beetle kill looks like, this is it in Google Earth. We're going to switch back to Topo. Okay, this one's good because it's exaggerated. You see this gray? The reason I know it's beetle kill is because I've got the fire layer turned on right here, right? Doesn't show me a fire. That could be a fire, but since there's no historical fire there and it looks they're dead, that's telling me that's a beetle kill area. What also is telling me is this. This is the telltale. You guys see the brown interspersed with the gray? Can you guys see that on the screen? Yep. Yeah, that little brown, that's beetle kill 101 right there. So when you're looking out, Colorado, the whole state looks like this. But in Montana, these are gold areas in Montana. So, pay attention to those. All right, last one. Slopes and benches. I love north face slopes for elk. I just do. It's an odds game. Can you find elk on the south? Yeah. I think it's just an odds thing, guys. They love the north more, especially once the grass gets drier, and especially in a drier, non-moisture year, it just grows better on the north side. More shade, less sun, better grass. What I really like is, you heard guys talking yesterday, I don't remember who said it, mid to 3/4 of a slope, concentrate on elk. Oh, Randy said he doesn't glass the bottoms. Yeah, I don't know that I'd go that far. But I would say that I concentrate most of my hunting mid to 3/4, and I'm looking for this right here. This bench is 3/4 of the way up. It's got a steep north, so it's gonna get super shade. It's got beautiful bench. It's got a water source running right through the freaking bench. It looks like there might be some marsh area. And there's an escape bench. These elk can move from this bench to this bench with relative ease right up to it. So this is a really great spot. And then you got a big open meadow area down here. Now the reason this is good, this is also Yellowstone. But you find places like that, you're looking good. All right. Saddles, I'm not gonna do saddles because that's a pretty obvious thing. I don't think I have time to really do the glassing spots. That's a good one, but I wish we don't have time for that one. Tools of the trade. I don't need to go over these because they're all gonna be written for you in your file. I wish I had more time to do the Google Earth, but we'll do that again. Guys, I have 3 videos on my site already. They're an hour long each. It's a lot of what you just heard. But my new ones, I got 3 more in works, and they're getting ready to come, where I get into the finding elk ones like this, so they'll be available too. And I'm gonna cover this just, if you guys want, maybe later we can talk about this back there, but the KML files, learn how to put the KML files in Google Earth. So the way TopRut works, let me just do it really fast. This is a good one. All right. You guys see where it says Wyoming unit number 70 up here? This is called a KML file. But if you open this file with this little triangle, you can see all these friggin' layers that are in this thing, okay? So if I turn it on in Google Earth, the internet's gonna be slow, but this is unit 70 in Wyoming. The reason I picked it is it's a wilderness unit, so we all can't hunt it. But it's got big ass elk in it. It's probably one of Ryan's top spots right by the thoroughfare. I want to hunt this area. This is one of my dream spots. As soon as I can find a resident that wants to take me in. It's not going to load. But so how you do it is you go to, all you got to do is go to toprut.com. Okay, and you're going to go to unit maps. You're going to pick your state, pick your species, pick your unit, and you're going to say download. And it's going to send you a link in your email. You're going to download the file, you're going to open it in Google Earth, and bam. That's all there is to it. Contour, topo, fire, road, motor vehicle use maps, everything about that unit, bam, in one file. You can get those all other places, but they've organized it into one package. Now you got to remember though, you have to go into there and turn on and off the different layers to see the different views. Okay, so it does require a little manipulation.
Does it have land ownership layers?
I don't think they do. Again, multi-dimensional. You don't need to worry about that. We've already done that. You've done your zones of pressure. You've done your core hunt areas. If you follow the steps, you've already eliminated the private property stuff. You've already worked that out. You're only looking at places that you can hunt, right? All right, I know I was long. I had a little bit more, but I knew it was gonna be hard to get to. Thank you guys. I've had a great weekend with you guys.